All right, so you're looking for a bike to ride around with your kids, get into dirt jumps, get back into BMX, ride to the pump track, maybe do a little skate park activity. Not sure what to get because you've been away from the bike industry for a while. I'm gonna give you a little rundown here on the difference between a BMX and a dirt jumper. This is a 22-inch BMX. If you see my other video comparing a 20-inch to a 20-inch, 22-inch, you'll see what the differences are. But a 22-inch BMX is a BMX bike. It's not a cruiser. It's not a race bike. This is a fully functional skate park, pump track, dirt jump. You could even race at BMX in certain classes. The 22-inch wheels I always thought was a gimmick when it first came out. A lot of people did. But they captured the essence of a 20-inch BMX, but made it on a bike that fits a taller person or somebody that's getting back into a sport they weren't quite sure they could still do. They did as a kid, and then they grow up, and now they want to get back into it with their kids, or just get back into it to stay in shape. This is a new version of a dirt jumper. This bike's only a year old, so the geometry, the setup is all 2021 specific. The older dirt jumpers were a little bit different. Bottom bracket was usually a little bit lower. They weren't quite as long. Some of the angles were different, especially the head tube angle. Dirt jumper is not the same as a hardtail mountain bike. I'm 6'2", and this is the size frame I ride in a dirt jumper. The seat is never going to be high enough to where you have proper leg extensions like you would on a mountain bike. These can be ridden sitting down for a short time, but they're definitely not someplace that you want to take it where you're commuting, unless you plan on standing up most of the time. These bikes are very versatile, very useful, but they're not for sitting down and cranking out the miles. So it is not the same as a regular hardtail mountain bike, even if it looks really similar to one. So if you're looking at getting into something, like I said, to ride the pump track, dirt jumps, skate park, whatever, basically here's the best options would be a BMX bike, whether going under a 20-inch if you're maybe 5'8" or shorter, or going to a 22-inch if you're 5'8" or taller, or you're getting back into BMX as an older adult. The dirt jumper will definitely work in all those situations. I ride mine in the skate park frequently. Obviously, being called a dirt jumper means that that is what it's designed for, but it will go anywhere a BMX bike will. It's more stable because of the longer wheelbase. It's more comfortable because of the longer length of the frame, the top tube. You get some more cushion because it runs a suspension fork on the front. You can get them with a rigid fork, but most of them are going to have a suspension fork of some sort. You can run a front brake on these. You can run a front brake on a BMX bike too. Most dirt jumpers will only have a rear brake. Given the situations that you ride in, grabbing a handful of front brake when you're coming down can send you over the bars, especially because you usually ride these standing up, and they tend to be very, very nimble. So you hit that front brake and it will stop you real quick, and the bike will react. No reason not to run a front brake if you are used to a front brake, but just be aware that this bike is much more reactive than a regular mountain bike. So here's where you're going to find the differences and why I would choose one over the other. If you're going to ride skate park, street, any of the concrete stuff like that, where you need a bike that's really nimble, can be flicked around, is going to get abused, scraped up a little bit, land on the concrete a lot. The 22-inch BMX in this case, or any BMX, is going to be more maneuverable. The wheelbase being shorter is going to make it easier to spin, whether it's a 180, a 360. If you're going to ride a indoor skate park or a tight outdoor skate park, the shorter wheelbase and the fact that it doesn't have suspension, so it doesn't flex as much, is going to make it more comfortable. It's going to make it easier, even though it is less stable. If you're going to do dirt jumps, if you're going to do skate parks that are wide open, if you're going to do pump tracks that have jumps in them, and they're also at a location where you have a pump track and the dirt jumps next to each other, a dirt jumper is going to be really nice. Super stable, super easy to learn on, front suspension to help you if you don't land correctly. Also, it's easier on your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders. The one thing I don't recommend, if you ride a lot of skate parks and nothing else, the front suspension does tend to compress when you're dropping into a bowl or into a quarter pipe. It doesn't feel quite as secure because of that, even though it is more forgiving, but you end up with a lot more weight on the front end. Not anything wrong with that, just be aware of it. It does feel different than a BMX bike. If you're gonna ride around the neighborhood with your kids and you're going to do some exciting stuff, either one of these is gonna work. Dirt jumper is more versatile for being stable, for going on trails. The BMX bike is easier to store. You don't have to worry about suspension rebuilds, stuff like that. Dirt jumpers sometimes will run gears in the rear like a mountain bike. Sometimes they don't. Really just kind of look at what you're getting and what you want to do. A hardtail mountain bike, if you're just riding around the neighborhood with the kids and maybe a trail or two, is probably more ideal than a full-on dirt jumper, because you can ride it sitting on the seat comfortably and put in more miles, or you can watch your kid more comfortably. It's more versatile if you want to ride trails in the mountains. But anyway, that is what the difference between a dirt jumper and a BMX bike is. This is obviously not a video for somebody who's advanced and knows what they're looking at. This is for the dad that wants something to ride around with the kids, maybe get some youth back, or you're right at that thing where you go the pump track and the dirt jumps and you don't really know which is the right bike for you. Determine what you're going to do more. If you want something street oriented, skate park oriented, kind of hardcore grind, spinning tricks, go with a BMX bike. If you want more stability, you're going to hit some trails, more dirt, probably bigger errors or gaps, I would go with the dirt jumper. Research, see what you want, see what's available in your neighborhood, go test ride some stuff at bike shops, see what you want. But that's basically the difference between these two styles.